All right. So welcome, everyone. This is the 12th event out of 187 library storytelling events. So you guys are still in the top 12, which is saying a lot. The first thing I want to do is just some housekeeping. So if you've got a cell phone, grab that cell phone. It happens every time that something dings, notifies, vibrates, there's something, and it'll take us out of the moment. So we really want to be present. So is anyone expecting an emergency in the next 2 hours? Just raise your hand. Okay. If not, then you're going to put it in airplane mode and put it out of your vision so that for the next 2 hours, just be present with these events. All right. So, as I said before, I'm hosting library storytelling events because I love books. And so I really want to showcase some of the storytellers' favorite books. So that's why we've got all these books on this table. I grew up on a farm in Minnesota. We were very poor. We could not buy books. And so libraries were a portal to adventure and to getting off the farm and learning new things. And then I became a lawyer. And I learned about storytelling. And I learned that being a good lawyer means telling good stories. And so I started telling stories in Vermont in 2015. I was telling stories at the Moth. Is anyone familiar with the Moth? Oh, a lot of you. And Extempo. Anyone familiar with Extempo? Yeah, which is it was kind of in the Montpelier, Barrie, Waterbury area. A woman named Lovejoy hosted these events. But after the pandemic, she stopped. And I wanted local storytelling. And she said, well, you should just host the events yourself. And I thought, okay, I'll host the events. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never hosted a storytelling event. So last May, I started hosting an event at the Moncton Library, which is where I live now. And it was amazing. I didn't really advertise it. I was a little scared that it wouldn't go well. And it was amazing. And so that's when I decided I'm going to host library storytelling events. I love this sense of community that brings us all together. I think in this time where we're very divided, stories bring us together. I think being a storyteller is very brave, lots of vulnerability. But I think being an audience member is very powerful too. The empathy you can feel through these stories is why I keep hosting these events. So we actually do have, WGDR radio from Plainfield is recording just the audio. And then I've got the Hardwick Community Television, who is also getting everything. So video and audio, so the multi-dimensional experience. There is a sign-up sheet on the check-in table, so if you want to learn about all of the rest of the events, I'm not good with math, but 170 some events that are to come, please sign up. I'll put you on an email list. If you think you want to be a future storyteller, sign up. Then you'll know about all the future events. There's also a handout, so you can see all the events through this year. And then I actually will be having I have a website that will have all the library events on it as well. All right, so I'm going to get into the storyteller rules. So storytellers, you might have looked at these rules. There are some veteran storytellers that have participated in events before, but I want everyone in the audience to understand, kind of the guidelines for this event. So all of these stories are first person, which means it happened to the storyteller. They're true. There can be some elaboration. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it's a story. It's got an arc. These are all told without notes or cue cards unless an accommodation was requested, so I am allowing that now. 5-minute minimum. So when you reach 5 minutes, you're good. 7.5 minutes is your max. Okay, so that's your range. Some people actually tell stories that are less than 5 minutes, so that, that's the range. I am going to go over timing. There is a timer here to keep you honest. And do not include racism, homophobia, misogyny, or any form of hate speech. If that starts to happen, I will escort you off the stage, and the story will be over. Storytellers, you can all record your story if you'd like. So there's multiple recording devices, but lots of people, I prefer to record my story on my iPhone. So there's a little stool here. You can put your phone there and record. Also, this microphone isn't projecting any sound, but there's a little arrow here, storytellers, so a little X. So come up and stand on the X, and that'll put you in the right position for the microphone to capture your voice. All right, so let's go over the timing rules. So Daphne is our amazing timer. She said she's going to be aggressive with the bell, so I don't know what that means. It depends on her mood. So the first words out of your mouth should be your storytellers, okay? So don't get up and start, I'm so nervous, I've never told a story before. Just take a deep breath and go for it, okay? So the second you start to speak, Daphne's going to wave a little green flag, and she's going to put it in a little stand. I was going to say holster, but it's a stand. Okay? So you're telling your story. Green means go. So you're going, you're telling your story. At 5 minutes, you're going to get the checkered flag. I thought you remembered. Checkered flag. We went over this. Okay. So the checkered flag is 5 minutes. So you can end your story. All right? So you're going along. You've got 2.5 minutes left. All right? At 7 minutes, you're going to get the red flag. That means you've got 30 seconds left. So you better start wrapping it up. Now, Daphne said she's going to really be paying attention. If it sounds like you're wrapping your story up, she's not going to bell you. Okay? But at 7.5 minutes, if it doesn't sound like you're... Yeah, especially if she doesn't like you. No, I'm kidding. But at 7.5 minutes, if it doesn't sound like your story's ending, you're going to get the bell. So please wrap the story up. Try to conclude. Try to finish it. We have 8 storytellers, so we want to keep it moving. We also have a lot of little stories, hopefully in that basket. All right. So after you tell your story, storytellers, this always happens. You're so excited to be done, you just rush off the stage. Okay, don't do that. Someone will do that. It's fine if you do that, but try to not do that. What you're going to do is after you tell your story, you're going to come over here to this hat, and you're going to pick the next storyteller. I'm going to pick the first storyteller right now. Once I did this in an event, and I pulled the name out, and she goes, fuck! I would like to hear something less obscene and more positive. Okay, so just practice thinking that. All right, so the first storyteller of the night is going to be Tomas Kalmar. So Tomas, you don't have to come up now. No, Tomas, you got plenty of time. There, but he's showing us where he's sitting. So the beauty in having the storyteller pick the next storyteller is that there's going to be time for that storyteller to collect themselves. So I'm not going to be calling Tomas up right now. Tomas has plenty of time, but he knows he's first. Are you excited?
I'm ready to go home, yes.
See? Well, I don't know if that's the right way to think about it, but... All right. So, when I call each storyteller to the stage, we want to welcome them with thunderous applause. And I know there's less than 30 or about 30 of us. So let's practice thunderous applause. All right, you guys are good. All right, so after you've picked the next storyteller, you're going to come over here, and I'm going to hand you your book. My book is here. And you're going to talk a little bit about your book. So my book is The Dream State by Eric Puchner. Well, I don't know if that's how you say it. That didn't sound right coming out. We'll just say Eric. So this is a psychological fiction. Is anyone familiar with that genre? You are?
Yeah.
Can you describe it?
It's like made up things that like make you think a lot and are suspenseful most of the time.
Yeah. This one is kind of, the context is the effects of climate change in Montana. And it's a story of friends and the transition of friends, both adult friends and children of those adults, and how their friendships evolve and change. There's also a really powerful, has anyone dealt with Alzheimer's? Dementia, Alzheimer's? the way he talks about Alzheimer's and the perspective of the person with Alzheimer's is very powerful. So it's an amazing book. It's about a lot of different things, but I would highly recommend it. So that's what you do as a storyteller. You're going to talk about your book, why people should read it. Just talk a little bit about it, and then you'll put it back over here. There are also, and Diane, can you give me, is there any story prompt back there? Can you bring them up here? So audience members can become a part of this event as well. And it may be that one of those prompts that you read on that list inspires you to tell a story at one of the events, one of the 170 some events that I'm going to host in the future. Okay, so I'm just going to grab one. So in between the storytellers, I'm going to pull out one of these prompts. So during intermission, we have 8 storytellers. 4 storytellers are going to go. Then we're going to have an intermission. There's going to be some maple cookies, some cider, some cheese, some strawberries over there. And I will read this story. So this is an anonymous storyteller. Tell us about a family vacation that went sideways. My hubby and I went to Ireland. I had the rental car so my husband could try all the Irish beers. I drove fine until the last eve. I turned onto a country road. I went around the corner on the right-hand side. Someone came around the bend on his left-hand side, and I drove into him. I totaled both cars. We were fine. Whew, that one had a lot. All right, so let's thank that anonymous storyteller. And let's try and avoid them on the roads if we know who they are. All right, so half the storytellers are going to go first. The other half are going to go second. Intermission's going to be about 10, 15 minutes. Daphne's going to call us all back with the bell. She's going to call us all back. We didn't rehearse this. I know. She's going to call everyone back. We're going to set the timer up. Daphne, okay, I'm not going to get into it. Me and Daphne go way back, just like a week or two. All right, so those are all of the storytelling rules. Audience guidelines, because I'm a lawyer and there's rules for everybody, all right? So please share your short stories. Drop them in the basket, become a part of this event. We cannot turn the heat down, but we'll keep the windows open. I really am sorry. And you can use those prompts as a fan as you're thinking about the story. Be active listeners. So give active feedback. If it's funny, laugh. If it's emotional, be present. But don't be conversational with the storyteller. So as they're telling their story and maybe they're talking about a car. Well, what kind of car was it? No, you're not interacting with them that way. But if they ask a question, how many of you were raised on a farm? How many of you were raised on a farm? 1? 2? Were you just, you weren't embarrassed about it, were you? You should be proud. I'm not. All right, that's what I'm saying. What was that? Well, did you grow up in it? You're a farm kid too?
I was raised on a farm on the weekends.
Oh, I don't know if that counts. Yeah, a real farmer. But so that's, if the storyteller asks the question, please engage with them, but don't pelt them with questions, okay? The librarian, Diane, is going to be keeping track of all the storytelling, and she's going to be picking her top 2 or 3 storytellers. In December, in South Burlington, we're having a best of storytelling event. So these are the best storytellers from every library event this year. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's December 20th. So there's really no other judging except for Diane. She'll just be paying attention to what people enjoy in the storytelling event. All right, so don't violate these rules that I've just gone over. They will ensure that we will have an enjoyable event, okay? So we have given Tomas plenty of time, and you can see how the structure of this event gives the storytellers a little bit of time to prepare themselves. Like I said, we're going to go 4 storytellers, intermission, 4 storytellers, all right? So we are going to welcome our first storyteller to the stage, Tomas Kalmar.
This is the story of how Facebook changed my life. Now, I was going to say I'm old enough to remember life before the internet, but as I look around the room, I'm not the only one. Facebook and YouTube were part of my life after 2008. If you're here in Hardwick, you'll remember that's when we started on Hopkins Hill Road to get DSL, and I discovered YouTube. I was able to see Mexicans singing I'm Mexican, and I sing many songs, and I could see other Mexicans singing songs. I also discovered, in those days, YouTube was much simpler than it is today. I also discovered I could listen to people yodeling all over the place, in Switzerland, in Austrian Alps, in the German Alps, and of course, old yodels of cowboy yodels. Now, I'm a great yodeler, and I was very happy to see that happen. On YouTube one day, I was watching somebody playing an Alp horn. You know those Alp horns? Big. This was in Switzerland. And the nice thing about this video was you could hear the echo. Now, the echo is really important. That's crucial to real yodeling. You yodel and you hear, ole, and you hear the echo come back. Ooh. Yeah. And so I found out more about this guy. I was able to find his YouTube channel, and we became friends. This thing about the echo, you remember that guy they found, that old Stone Age guy up in the Alps in Italy, frozen? I think he had a wooden backpack. Nobody could figure out what he was doing up there. It was obvious to me. He was looking for a good echo point. That was the only way in those days that you could hear your own voice. So there I am with this guy who plays on YouTube with his Alp horn, listening to his echo, and we became friends on YouTube. We communicated. He was in Geneva, and I think he used Google to get English, and I did the same to write in French. Then a couple of years later, I was busy on Facebook. I spent hours a day on YouTube and Facebook. Back in those days, you put something on, and there was a conversation. People did their comments. It didn't, mix them up in out of order. And then somewhere around 2011, my friend Alex, the Alp horn player, posted on Facebook, next week there's a national gathering of yodelers in Interlaken in Switzerland for the Eidgenössisches Jodlerfest or something like that. This was a national thing where all these towns and villages in Switzerland have their own little yodeling clubs. And he said, I bet I know someone who wants to go. Mwah. So I got onto Facebook and I said, there's this guy. He says he's going to put me up in Geneva. It would cost me $1,000 to get there and back, which I don't have. Should I go? Friends, I got 54 comments on there. All these people telling me, you got to go. If you don't, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. And these were somebody I went to school with in Australia in the 1950s, students I'd had at Goddard College, where I was at the time, and Stirling College students, and people all over the world telling me I got to go. So I went. And when I got there, Switzerland had never been on my list as one of the places I had to go before I die. And it was pretty much what I thought it was. People kind of like... not... And when I got to Interlaken, I had imagined that it would be like yodeling would be permitted anywhere. And people could walk down the street and I could meet people and yodel with them. Not at all. It was all very structured. There was a stage and the yodeling club had to sit in a certain way with their traditional costume, and they all did these rather boring yodels with a conductor. And at the back there was a backdrop of the Alps, which was ridiculous because you could see the Alps right there. But I wandered around with a flip video. Do you remember those little flip video things? You could make videos on them before there was on iPhones. And I found these smaller events, unofficial ones, kids, about young kids and teenagers in a little group singing, yodeling. So I did that one. And I put it on my YouTube channel, which is called Half a Yodel. That's ATHA, Yodel. Check it out when you get home and you'll have a hoot. It's my yodeling channel on YouTube. So I put that on. This was my very first thing I put on there. And the next day, it had like 500 likes. And the official ones of every club in every village in Switzerland didn't get 500 likes. The next day, it had 1,000. And it turned out the main ones were coming from Serbia. So, and Alex and me, we got on like a house on fire, and he taught me to play the Alp horn, and all of that you'll see on my channel. And so that, folks, is the story of how Facebook changed my life. Oh. I regret to inform you that the next storyteller is the famous Virginia Holloman. What? Do I do something about my book? It's a heavy one. Oh! So when this new library opened, Bridget and me came to check it out, and upstairs, all the books that were always here now had more room to breathe. And they were laid out. And this one caught my eye. And it has become one of my favorite books. And friends, I have thousands and thousands of books. History of the World in 100 Objects. It's by the director of the British Museum, which has more objects than you could ever imagine. And the guy is fantastic. Each chapter is about 2 or 3 pages of a particular object from all over the world. And his reflections on it are so enlightening. So doesn't read like National Geographic or even as good as that guy Attenborough. This is better than all of those. I recommend it strongly, but right now it's out in my name. It'll be back in August 6th. It's coming back because Bridget and me are buying our own copy.
Engage with the storytellers, but do you want to do a little yodel for us?
Oh, yes, please.
I think everyone wants to hear a yodel.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, this is the song we used to sing in this religion that I started called Half a Yodel in southern Illinois. And our motto was, a day on which you've yodeled hasn't been completely wasted. A cowgirl in Montana who yodels like the Swiss. She taught me how to yodel. She taught me how to kiss. She taught me how to ride a horse, the good old Western style. Now that we are married, we yodel all the while. This is half a yodel. Hodel-lady. 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 Hodel-lady.
I do feel that my day is complete now. And actually, I love yodeling. And I didn't know that there was people that had conventions and events. And so now I feel like I might go to Switzerland and learn how to yodel as well. Wonderful story. All right, so let's see what our audience has to say for us. All right. Oh, is this the same? So this is Carlotta Hayes. Carlotta, where are you? Oh, hi, Carlotta. So you told us about a family vacation that went sideways. So I think that's the theme tonight. All right. My birth family went camping at a rustic spot by water. There were black flies or mosquitoes so bad that we all got in moods and ended up leaving early. I remember carrying stuff up a hill, thick with roots, and thinking at age 10, so this is what hell is like. Thank you, Carlotta. Let's thank her for that story. Yeah, I've been thinking that a lot this year because the winter was mild, and so it didn't kill off a lot of the deer fly larvae. So the deer flies have been 2 to 3 times in volume. Has anyone else noticed that? Like, I live on a llama farm next to a horse farm, and I just walk out and they just descend. I have to use horse spray on my dog, and then I'm wearing a hairnet, not a hairnet, a bug net, well, a hairnet too, but a bug net, just lots of nets, and it's been a nightmare, so I get it. I feel that way every day in July. All right, so our second storyteller is ready to go. So let's all give a warm welcome to our second storyteller, Virginia Holloman.
Good evening. I brought my treasure chest with me tonight. And in my treasure chest, it is full of gems that, to me, are symbols of pure joy that over the years that I have collected and have put into this. And at this moment in our world, I sometimes feel like the negative is coming, and if I pick one of those gems and think about it, it makes the negative go away, and that's a good thing. I have the privilege of teaching young children all my life, 33 years in kindergarten, and since I retired, I've been able to work with kids through storytelling, as well as I travel around the state for Shelburne Farms and teach kids where their food comes from, which they don't know. But in that time with them, I've had such wonderful, joyous comments made that for years I can just think about that and it makes me smile and it fills my heart. And that's important to me. So I wanted to tell you, one little guy came up to me. I was working at cutting some stuff, and he went like that, and they said, Miss Holman. I said, yeah. And he said, Miss Holman, you smell like good toilet paper. And I realized that was just about when Charmin came out. So, and he meant it very much like a compliment, but it took a moment for me to appreciate it. I have to say. Another one, I had it was back in the day when we all got perms, and I had a perm and came to school the next day, and a little guy said to me, kept looking at me like that, and Mrs. Holloman, he was shaking his head. You look like somebody nobody knows. But you see how those treasures, they make you smile, they make you feel good about, and they were certainly meant in a positive way. A little girl, Brenda, her name was, little cutie, and blonde hair, great big blue eyes, came from a kind of a tough family. But I was carrying some books, and I was backing up into a space, and she said to me, Mrs. Holman, you'll never get your fat ass in there. And look at, the other kid's eyes got huge, but anatomically correct, and it was, she wasn't being hurtful. She wasn't, but it made me smile. Recently, I was telling a story, and the kids were around, and after I finished, one little guy said, Miss Virginia, you have old feet. And almost immediately, the little girl next to him stood up, and she kind of came over, like, it's okay to me. And she said, it's okay. She's old all over. So again, for years, all of these are treasures that I think of as gems that are in my chest that I can pull from him. One little guy came up from the class, in the classroom, he was walking like this. And he said, I got to go shit like a big man. And I said, okay, and it looked perhaps like he already had. But he waddled over to the bathroom, luckily he was in the room, and then a few minutes passed, he shut the door, and then a few minutes passed, and he opened the door wide, and he was still sitting there, and he said, really loud, so everybody could hear, he said, I shit like a big man, and I wiped like a man. Just like that. I shit like a big man, and I wiped like a man. And was so proud of himself, and it was just one of those joyous things that he was sharing with the rest of the class. Again, the rest of the class's eyes were this big, like, what's she going to do, what's she going to do? But it was a joy. I mean, he was just sharing something for him. So one of the other pieces that happen, of course, whenever you're working with kids, there's some sad points or some times that your heart kind of breaks. But this one was a mixture, and this gem, there was a little guy that had some behavior issues in my class, and he was having a rough day, and there was another little guy over here that had been working so hard on this picture, the piece of paper about this big, and he'd been working and working, and he was drawing his farm, and he had the different animals, and it really was quite well done for his age group, and he was working so hard with a little guy that was having a bad day, picked up a black crayon, and he scribbled all over. And I saw it happen, and I tried to get there in time, but I didn't. And the little guy that was drawing took a deep breath, like that, and they looked up at me and looked at the paper, and they said, it looks like the Lord's burning his garbage. And then he went on to finish. And so I just wanted to share those with you, and I'm sure that you all have those gems, that, some kind of special things that you can think of when our craziness in the world comes in on us. So, thank you. And the next person is Kim Lipinski. No.
Kim Lipinski, number 3.
The book I chose was The Women by Kristen Hanna. Anyone who has read it, I think, is incredibly powerful. And it's about the women that served in Vietnam before and after the war. Some details that I don't know that any of us who were not actually there knew about what was happening. And it's very, very, I don't know, powerful is, I guess, the strong word, but it is. It's really well done, and I certainly suggest it. I've had lots and lots of my friends were in Vietnam, male friends, and I had heard certainly some stories, but this was something. So I certainly recommend it.
Awesome. Thank you. I still remember my kindergarten teacher being so kind and so generous, and I think you would have been an awesome kindergarten teacher. I would have loved you as a kindergarten teacher. I grew up on a farm, very isolated. I was scared to death of people, and I remember my birthday, September 3rd, so it's really tricky. I couldn't make friends fast enough. I never got a birthday party, and I remember the teacher, she was so kind. She celebrated, my birthday with cupcakes, and it was so meaningful. Mrs. Amundsen, I still remember her. So I think kindergarten teachers have a big, do a lot of people remember their kindergarten teachers? Yeah. Let's give a big round of applause to those kindergarten teachers. All of them. It's like, think about it. We're just little beings, and they have to do a lot of different things. So yeah, very, very powerful. All right, so let's hire another audience story. I'm going to pick two because that one looks short. Oh, and that one's long. All right. So the first storyteller is anonymous. Tell us about how you ended up living in Vermont. Born here, then 5 years in Arizona, then husband up and died, and here I am. So that's a short story, but I think there's a lot more to that. I can't even believe this is happening again, but this is also the same story prompt. Anonymous, how they ended up living in Vermont. I was getting ready to move to Ithaca to join my girlfriend when I received a Dear John letter. I had already quit my job and got rid of my apartment, so I had nothing holding me back. I went to visit a friend, and he suggested we play Monopoly. First move of the first game, I landed on Vermont Ave. 45 minutes later, I had soundly beaten him. He wanted revenge, so we played another game. First move, I landed on Vermont Ave. And this time, I won in 30 minutes. I took it as a sign, and when a friend asked me if I wanted to get a share in a ski house in Vermont, I said, I'll take two. So I would have my own room, and I moved to Vermont 2 weeks later. Woo! Yeah, I'm glad Monopoly led to a positive experience. I've played a lot of Monopoly games, and they have not been positive. So I'm glad that one was. All right, without further ado, let's welcome our third storyteller to the stage, Kim Lipinski.
It was 1987. I was 26 years old and living in Los Angeles. I'd recently graduated from college, and I had 3 jobs that were all supposed to be part-time. They varied. One of these jobs was managing an art studio for a semi-famous artist in LA. And on that particular day, I walked through the door of his studio, and there he was to greet me right in my face, and he said, "We need to talk." I was like, oh no, what have I done? You know, here I am, just graduated college, just trying to start my career, and I think I might be losing my job today. So he had 2 chairs in the middle of the studio. This was probably a 2,500 square foot studio, an enormous warehouse space. He did very large art. And there were 2 chairs right in the middle of the room, like almost knees touching. And so he said, let's sit. And so we sat. And our knees were indeed touching. And he put his head on his chin like this and his elbows on his knees, and he put his face inches from mine. And he said to me, I've just gotten a job in New York City, and I need you to close down my studio because I start in 5 days and I need to move. And I was like, oh no, it's true. Yeah, I just lost this job. Now I need to find another part-time job. So I'm already thinking, okay, who can I ask? What can I do? And then he says, but I'd like you to come with me and be my assistant. I'm going to be the design director at a new magazine on Madison Avenue. And I gulped. And this was my dream job. This was what I went to school for. Oh, my goodness. So I said what I had to say. I said, well, I'm going to have to talk to my husband and let you know. And he said, well, I need to know by 10 o'clock tonight. To this day, I don't know why he needed to know by 10 o'clock at night, but he told me I had to call him by 10 o'clock and let him know, did I want the job or not? And if I took it, I had to be there and start in 5 days. So I got on the highway. I had about a 20-minute drive. Probably takes an hour and a half these days. But it was only about 20 minutes back then. And I get to this little bungalow house that we were renting, and I walk in the door, and my husband's sprawled on the couch. And I say, guess what? Norman offered me a job in New York City, and I start in 5 days. And he said, cool. I always wanted to live in New York City. And I said, no, you don't get it. Norman offered me a job in New York City. I'm moving to New York City in 5 days. We are getting divorced. So we had only been married about a year, but I'll give you a little background. We got home from the honeymoon, went to our first days at work, as you know, after being married and coming back. And then we come home, and that night I'm like, well, how was your day? You know, and he said it was great. I quit my job. I said, you quit your job? Why? And he said, and I'll never forget this, why should I work? You have enough ambition for both of us. And he never worked again. That's why I had 3 jobs, to pay for the rent, to pay for the car, to pay for the groceries, everything. So anyways, the very next day, we went down to City Hall, paid $50, filled out a form, so that 6 months later we'd be officially divorced. We had nearly 0 assets, so it was very simple when you're in that kind of a position. But the thing we did have to split up was our pets. Now, you know, we had, let's see, I don't know, we had a few cats, we had a sort of a crocodile thing, we had some big fish tanks. It was a caiman. We had an alligator farm permit, though. And then I also had a rabbit that was very, very dear to me. This rabbit was non-negotiable. The rabbit was coming with me. So he kept the caiman, this crocodile thing, and the fish tanks, and 2 of the cats. And I took 1 of the cats and the rabbit. Now, the tricky part is that I had to fly from LA to New York, and in those days, I don't know about now, but you couldn't take rabbits on airline because they're rodents, and rodents are banned on aircraft. So I'm thinking, I got to figure this one out. So I'm looking at my rabbit. He's a very white, fluffy Angora rabbit. Think Persian cat, right? So I bought one of those under-the-seat pet carriers that are only about this big, you know, and I booked a ticket for myself. My real cat, I got a regular, bigger carrier and booked its ticket for cargo the way you had to do cats back then. But this cat was going to ride with me, this cat. So I got the in the cabin ticket for that pet. And so then the day comes and I have to go to the airport. But just a little more background. In those days, I was late everywhere, like really late, everywhere I went. And so I got to the airport really late for my flight. But this was a really important flight. This was my big job opportunity and everything else. So anyways, I'm approaching security. In those days, there was no TSA, but there was absolutely security. And I had my pet carrier and I had a knapsack. And of course, security pulled me aside, and I'm like, oh no, I don't have time for this. You know, I'm like 15 minutes before the door is going to close on the plane. And they said, we need to inspect that carrier. You need to go sit on that bench against the wall and wait for an inspector. Oh, I'm busted. This is awful. What am I going to do? So I went and I sat on the bench against the wall, and I waited and I waited. And I can still envision all the people walking by me to their gates, and me looking at my watch. And thinking, oh no, it's like 2 minutes now. So I did the only thing I knew I could do. And I got my backpack on nice and tight. I hugged the pet carrier to my chest, and I ran. I ran as fast as I could, and I got to my gate, and I got on the plane, and the plane took off. I didn't get caught. And once we got up to the altitude and they turned off the seatbelt sign, I brought my bunny out, put him in my lap, looked out the window, and dreamed of my new life. Thank you. Lexi Kensington is going to be.
Lexi Kensington, number 4.
And my favorite book is Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. This is the book that introduced me to like chapter books and reading in a series, reading one book after another and devouring reading. Up until then, it was kind of just a required thing by school, but when I discovered this, and just a little preamble, I have another story I tell that talks about how the fashion in this book ruined my junior high years. That's it.
All right. I just want to say in Kim's defense, she was early tonight. She was one of the first people here. So you've really rounded a corner on that. And as you said, back, I didn't fly for a long time because we didn't have enough money to fly. But I remember seeing the movie Airplane. And as they were bringing like torpedo launchers through and all of that, I don't know why that just flashed up. Like you're carrying your rabbit, and then there's a torpedo launcher going through, and they're like, go on through, you're fine. Did anyone say anything about the rabbit in the plane? Or?
Yes, the man sitting next to me actually was the owner of a rabbit farm in the Midwest. Oh. And he thought it was adorable.
Oh, rabbits are so cute. Did it have a diaper on, or was it?
No,
Okay.
no, I just put a little towel in my lap and it was fine. I think I withheld water for a long time, maybe too.
Yeah, wise, because that's a long flight. And I read all of the Little House on the Prairie books as well. I grew up in Minnesota, and that is where it was kind of based. And I watched all of the shows. And actually, I became later in my life a competitive triathlete. And I would be on my bike in my basement, and I watched all the Little House on the Prairie. It was just soothing for me. And I'm just watching, and there's so much to be learned back then. And I don't know how they all fit in that little house, but they did.
Mary is the right now.
Yeah, Mary was always, she just had a problem with everything. All right, let's see. Do we have any more stories in the basket? I just want to make sure I have enough for okay. That's right, you can hold it. I'll get it later. I'm just going to do one. So Lexi's going to go next, and then we'll have intermission. So please use intermission to drop some stories in there. I'd love to hear more about all of your lives. All right, this one is anonymous, but in the name they said True Fact Story. So this is real. Tell us about a time you got in the most trouble with your parents. Now, this is one I really want people to write about because I want to know these stories. It was the Watergate era, and I became fascinated with bugging rooms. I made a telephone tap. And the first thing I recorded was my father exclaiming his joy at the tryst he had with my mom's best friend. She was on the other end of the line. They both giggled like insipid teenagers. My father found and played the tape. Wow. All right, thank you for that, Anonymous. You're out there. I don't know who you are. All right. So our fourth storyteller, let's give a warm welcome to Lexi Kensington. Woo!
I was so drunk. And why not? I was throwing a party. I had just moved into my first apartment, and it was really cool. And I had just started a brand new job to pay for the flat. And it was a great time in my life. The job was as an apprentice at a funeral home. And Wilson St. Pierre, they're still there. And this was my night off. You see, in those days, funeral homes would have apprentices take care of things like night calls, which means that when a family would call and say, Uncle Bean has died and is in this nursing home or in that hospital or in that morgue, can you do something about it? So you would send somebody right away, 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, right away. So they would go pick the bodies up as soon as it was released. This was a house call that I'm going to be talking about, and I'd never done a house call before. So I'm partying. We have smoked oysters and a lot of other rich food, and I'm pounding martinis at the time. And I was drunk. I get a phone call. The other apprentice has a bad back, and there's stairs at this house. We need you to come in to help to load out because there are stairs. I'd say, I'm drunk. This is my night off. You don't want me. I'm a mess. I can't do it. He says, you've never done a house call. It's your time. Come in right now. No excuses. Just come in. So in I go. I clean up. I tell everybody in the party, have fun. Just don't burn the place down. I'll be back. And so I go to the funeral home, and he said, well, you are drunk. So we go to the house, and this is a house out on the edge of town. We have a hearse. We didn't have a van. We had a hearse. So we're driving around. We find the house. We go into the house, and it's kind of cruddy. There's a little old lady who's at the door. She was a caretaker. She was not a widow or anything like that. And she says, well, come on in. So we take the stretcher in. Right through there. It was an old house, and there was like a parlor with pocket doors. The doors slide open, and there is a sick room. And it had been a sick room for a while. And there's the deceased on a bed. No sheet, no clothes, no nothing, just there. It was an older house. The wallpaper was kind of yellowed. There was newspaper taped over the windows. They had gone yellow. There was a bug light on the porch that was spilling light into everything that was also yellow. The deceased had some sort of hepatic issue, and he was yellow. Everything is fakakta yellow for some reason. And I'm really drunk. And I've had all these smoked oysters and some other canapes that I probably should never have had on top of all this liquor. And this is the first time I'm going into a scene like this. And I'm just ill. I'm just ill. And it's like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to get through this without getting sick. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. And there's a little old lady. And she opens the pocket doors up again. Oh, by the way, he has a glass eye that the welfare people gave, and we need to turn it back in. So I go and I tell the other apprentice, he's got a glass eye. We have to leave it here. And he says, well, which eye is it? Of course he'd ask this thing. So I go back out there and says, Miss, do you happen to know which eye needs to be left behind? And she goes, I don't know. I have no idea. And at this point, I'm really ill. You know, it's like, whoa. There's even a fly strip in this room with flies on it. Not all of them are dead. And I think I'm going to be sick, and I'm going to lose this job, and then the flies are mocking me. You can't take it, can you? So the other guy goes, oh, it's no problem. He takes his thumbs, goes like that. One spits through the room like a watermelon seed. He grabs a used tissue, picks it up, and sits it on the nightstand. And while the nightstand is sitting there looking at me, I'm just ready to just lose it altogether. We load him onto the stretcher. We get down the stairs, which were considerable. We get back to the funeral home, put him up on the prep room. He says, we don't have a licensed embalmer tonight, so we'll take care of it in the morning. Come back at 10. I said, thanks, I'm going back to see my party now. And I go back to the party, and everyone's having a good time. Man, it is rocking. And somehow, they hadn't had the police come, and they hadn't had the fire department come, but they did ask, so, what was it like? And I said, I found my people. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Our next storyteller is going to be Martha Zweig. There you go.
She got the longest intermission.
And my book is available through an interlibrary loan, which I was unaware that anybody could find it. It's E.R. Chamberlain's The Bad Popes. I've always been fascinated by folks who make really poor decisions despite all the evidence to come up with an idea that's not the bad idea, but they make the bad choice anyway. And in the medieval era and in the early Enlightenment era, there were some pretty lousy popes. No reflection on anything today or anything in the 20th century, even the 19th century, really. But some of these rascals were pretty lousy bums. And it's fun reading, basically because of the fact that you just see one poor decision made after another, after another, after another. And this is if you enjoy any kind of political history at all, that's very much what this is all about. It talks about the Borgia, the popes that were Borgia, the Medici, and some other folks, gangsters, the Orsini. They were all criminal gangs, and how they all took all the money. The good news is, you read this, you realize we'll get through our times. Okay, thank you, folks.
All right. Awesome. Whew, that was that's a tough story. That's a tough story. How many of you have seen a dead body? Okay, so most of it's and you remember your first and your however many you see. So yeah, it can be traumatic for sure. So thank you for sharing. The eyeball, it was an extra. All right, so we are going to take a 15-minute intermission. We're going to do a 10 minutes. The bell's going to ring. That means you have 5 minutes to get back. All right, I think we are ready to start back up with our second half. All right. So I only have one audience story. So I'm actually going to save it. And if anyone has any inklings of stories and they want to drop them in there, they can. So what I'd like to do is actually bring our fifth storyteller up to the stage. Her name is Martha Zweig.
Hello, everybody. In 1960, I graduated from pre-K through 12 Quaker school in the suburb of Philadelphia. And I went on to the University of Michigan. And I went down to the Michigan Daily to join up. This is not going to work. To somebody get me. This was at the time of the civil rights movement, the best and worst down south. And that spring, folks came up from SNCC and COFO, trying to recruit people to come down for the summer. And I remember this very tall, very black man from Kofo who said, "Nothing is going to get any better down there until white people start dying, getting killed, and that we should be prepared for that, because there wasn't, they weren't going to do babysitting." And I felt very offended. So that summer, I went back home to my leafy suburb, and I went down to the Moorestown Chronicle. I'd been doing summer semi-journalism stuff at local papers. And it turned out that they had done a series of interviews with the elders of the oldest first families, the old Quaker families, and had been running these stories. So I asked if I could do the old black families. Slaves of the old white families, formerly. And they said I could. And I especially remember turning down towards Central Avenue. Central Avenue was okay for a certain length, but beyond that it was a bad neighborhood and you didn't go there. So I went there and I knocked on doors and told the black people who answered the doors what the project was and that I needed to know who and where in the neighborhood would be the very best person to talk to. And they told me, and I went there. And it was this old lady, and she agreed, and we set a time, and I came back at the time we set, and she invited me in, and we sat down at this big table. And at the other end of the table, looking right at me, there stood two of her sons. They were very straight, and their arms like this, and their faces like this. And they watched the interview. She was delighted. And they never cracked a smile. And we did the interview, and I was very scared of the sons, but I was not offended anymore. And I did the story, and they ran the story, and in subsequent issues, there were one or two of the members of the old Quaker families who had actually been the slave masters the family had. And they responded, not with apologies particularly, but with respectful acknowledgement. And I wondered what if it had been the other way around? What if a 20-year-old, 21-year-old young black man had gone around to white neighbors trying to find out more about his history? That's all. Oh, they're big.
Yep.
Cariella Tabone.
All right. Cariella's on deck. You want me to take that?
All right, I got her. I've been looking, expecting there to be a table. There isn't. I haven't read this in a while. This was an Oprah book. The story of Edgar Sawtelle. It is a story, it is the play of Hamlet, except the characters are dogs. And it's very serious. It's very lush. It is just gorgeous. And the idea is that there's this family of dog breeders. I don't even remember what the breed is. Maybe it doesn't matter. But we are told that they are such good breeders, they care about their dogs so much that whenever anybody purchases, I guess, a dog, they keep up with the dog. The breeders keep calling back and asking about the dog, and it's sort of a lifelong commitment kind of a thing. And there's part about how it's only the very best of the dogs that they sell, and I'm thinking, what do you do with the other ones? But that's not really dealt with. But it's really wonderful. I have been especially intrigued by the ghosts, which are represented as episodes of weather. A spume coming up off the lake in a sort of a mini tornado, and rain, and at the end there's a fire, and it's just really neat. I read this whole thing. Edgar's Hotel, they do have it on Interlibrary. What you think of that?
I feel like that's a story where I want to know more. I want to know about the questions. I want to know about the answers. I want to know a lot. So I hope you'll tell more at some point. Because I'm very intrigued.
I was looking at it that way for a while, but it got too long.
Well, I started thinking, could we find the article?
I searched and searched. I had no idea where it is. And I was so terrified.
Right.
I really was.
Because you were 21, 20?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't remember very much. I'm just confessing what impressed me. The unforgettable stuff for me was coming from my own racism.
Right.
And except that I really did appreciate how much the lady was enjoying it.
It's interesting, when you have like a traumatic event like that, where you're scared, right? And there's certain things that you remember and certain things you don't remember. But yeah, it's very powerful. So thank you for sharing. All right, let's see. I've got one more. Are there any more in the basket? Nope. All right. So another anonymous. Tell us about how you ended up living in Vermont. We rode our bikes from Michigan and through New England. I got tired of riding in Barrie, and we found a house in Woodbury through the Washington world. I love that. Wow. Excellent. All right. So Let us bring up our sixth storyteller. Give a warm welcome to Cariella Tabone.
Okay, so this is a true story from my life. I wish I could say that I was a kid when it happened, but I wasn't. It would be nice if I could say that I was a young adult at the time, but that wouldn't actually be the truth either. Luckily, this actually isn't the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me in my life. So without further ado, I call this story The Squirrel and the Gazebo. Back when I was 44 years old, I'm 61 now, I finally figured out what I want to be when I grow up. I know, 44, yep. I wanted to be an artist. No, not art history, just art. And I even managed to get my job to pay for it. So in 2008, I enrolled in Nassau Community College full-time for an Associate of Science degree in art. Oh, and I was also working 50 hours a week, had a family, wife, kids, and now full-time school. But I digress. Back to the story. So my first class was at 7 o'clock in the morning. I like to get there early so that I could watch the sunrise, and I was an artist, aspiring photographer, so I have way too many pictures of the sun in the early morning hours, but that's okay. Anyway, please travel back with me to Garden City, New York, in a mid-October morning. That's a flashback I've been working on. I was sitting at the gazebo behind the art building with my sketch pad. The wood bench, still damp from the recent rain, retained chill from the cold. Suddenly, a squirrel landed on the railing about 5 feet from me. He was as scared to see me as I was to see him. The result of a miscalculated leap? I looked Squirrel square in the eye, and he froze, terror in his wide-open eye. I wondered if he had sensed my own terror, as earlier that semester, a girl was attacked by a squirrel that she got too close to. So apparently squirrels with their razor-sharp claws would attack if you got too close to them. I looked away. He moved. I looked back. He froze. I looked away. He moved. I looked back and he froze. I had lost my fear at my newfound game of squirrel, red light, green light. I looked Squirrel square in the eye again, but this time Squirrel slipped and regained his balance but a foot from me and froze. Fearing for my life, I slowly reached my far hand into my portfolio and found my X-Acto knife. It was going to be me or him. I closed my eyes and turned and lunged. Squirrel, no! Was nowhere to be found. My heart pounding as I sat back and breathed a heavy sigh. The blade's still in my hand. Minutes passed. I don't know how many. My heart still racing as I continued to stare at the blade. Suddenly, a shadow fell around me. I looked up. A campus security officer said to me, "What are your intentions with that blade?" and stared me square in the eye. I froze. And then I spent the next 5 minutes explaining to him all about Squirrel, who was conveniently nowhere to be found. And he just stood there, not believing me until he got bored of it. And finally just said to me, a 44-year-old aspiring artist at Nassau Community College, that I should probably be getting to class. The end.
All right, our seventh
Art.
storyteller,
Damaris.
Art Demarai.
So, my book is The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. This is the second time that I've actually get to hold the book. I love this story. I originally saw it on Netflix. They have a 7-hour miniseries, which is really great. One of my friends, who's always telling me to watch more TV, made me watch it. So I thought I'd watched it maybe a dozen times, and then my wife informed me I'd watched it 159 times. So we're gonna roll with that. And it's what I have is the audiobook. So I've listened to that at least 1,000 times. Just sometimes I would just drive around and just so I can keep listening. It's a great story. It details the life of Beth Harmon from ages 8 to 20. I like stories with strong female protagonists, and she loses her birth parents, gets put into an orphanage where they give the kids drugs to calm them down because I guess they didn't want to deal with them. Then she gets adopted, and then she loses another set of parents. Oh. And all during this time, she's becoming this chess grandmaster. And it's just, to see her come through all these struggles, it really meant a lot to me. And you don't need to know about chess to understand the story. It's just that well written. The only thing I would suggest maybe that's a little strange is if you watch the series first, it's only 7 hours. The visualizations were so good that when you read the book, it actually transports you to the places they showed you in the movie, that in case you haven't been to places like that. And if there's any doubt that I like this book, this is an outfit from the movie that I'm wearing, down to the lipstick. This is not my first story time. I did one in Essex because I did the same book, and I didn't know if I can get an outfit in time because I thought it would be fun, so I ordered 2. So now that I had a second book, I had to come do a second story time so that I could wear the second outfit.
I let it slide. You can have the same look.
Thank you.
I have such a soft spot for squirrels. I do. I used to teach 5th grade outdoor education in Texas, and I rehabilitated a flying squirrel, a little southern flying squirrel, Peanut. And I love that squirrel. And even to this day, I know they're rodents, but I feel like they've got a soul. And I feel like they can look you in the eye, and you feel a connection. So something about squirrels. But flying squirrels are really cool because they can fly. And Peanut was an amazing educational tool, and lots of kids, 5th graders, learned about nocturnal animals, adaptations from this little squirrel. She had quite a life. So thank you for sharing. Well, I'm just going to randomly pick. So I'm going to tell you about a near-death experience, just a really short story here. So as I said before, I'm from Minnesota. And in Minnesota, it's very flat. Is anyone from Minnesota or Wisconsin or the North Dakota?
I went to school in Minnesota.
Oh, you did? Mankato!
But I lived in Iowa.
Iowa. Yeah, Iowa's our neighbor to the south. I worked in Mankato, and I went to Gustavus Adolphus College in St. Peter. And St. Peter is 10 minutes from Mankato, so we've got that connection. So it's flat, right?
It's flat.
Yeah, it's pretty flat. And I like to rollerblade. So I was a big rollerblader. I wouldn't say I was good. In Minnesota, you don't have to know how to stop because it's flat. So you just kind of go and then you just kind of stop. So I had a summer job in college in Colorado. So I brought my rollerblades and I was going to rollerblade. So I was working at a bed and breakfast in Snowmass Village, Colorado. It was on a ski slope. And I had this brilliant idea that I was going to rollerblade down to the grocery store, and that was the only plan. I was going to rollerblade to the grocery store and get groceries and come back. Now, the bed and breakfast was kind of, I would say, midpoint in the mountain. So I put my rollerblades on, I've got my jean shorts, my t-shirt, and I start going. And I got my backpack on because I was going to somehow I was going to rollerblade back up the mountain with my groceries. I hadn't really thought things through. I didn't have a prefrontal cortex fully formed. I was only, how old was I, 18, 19? The prefrontal cortex is not fully formed till 30, FYI. I learned that later. So I'm out there and I start going and I start picking up speed. And it's kind of a serpentine down. So it starts out slow and then you start accelerating. Every corner I was descending faster and faster. And pretty soon I realize I'm going too fast. I don't know how to stop. I'm passing cars. I am just hurtling to the bottom. I was using the same technique that I used skiing in Minnesota, which was just I'd go all the way to the bottom into the hay bales, and that's how I would stop. So I'm going down, and I'm like, I come around a corner, and I just start losing control, and I'm kind of skidding out, and there was a cliff, and there was a guardrail, and I kind of came around, I went under the guardrail, and I grabbed the guardrail, and that's how I stopped. The whole left side of my body was completely road rashed. I got like an infection, I didn't have insurance, and I survived, and I actually still rollerbladed. I got back up, kind of dusted myself off, and I rollerbladed down, just covered in blood and dirt, and I got groceries, and I put them on, and then I was like, I can't rollerblade back up the mountain, so I had to carry my rollerblades. I walked back up to the mountain. I got like the worst infection. I couldn't work. It was horrible. So just words of wisdom, don't, if you're from Minnesota, don't go rollerblading in Colorado. It's just, unless you know how to stop. But yeah, that was one of the times I almost died. All right, so that is my I almost died story. All right, our next storyteller, let us give a warm welcome to Art Demarai.
There it is. Well, thank you. I notice we're name-checking years in the 20th century tonight, so I'll name-check mine. It's 1967. And in 1967, I am a junior in high school. And that's not going well for me. And I'm hating it, actually. It's not working. So where I'm doing this, where I'm performing this astounding feat, is a suburb, in the inner suburb of New York City. And if you're growing up there, New York City has this cultural ambiance in your life that you can't ignore. It's our newspapers, it's our television, it's our radio, it's our sports teams. There's a hill right outside of town where you can see the Manhattan skyline. And as a kid, you inevitably get taken on these trips, to see ball games and the Natural History Museum and the Staten Island Ferry and St. Patrick's Cathedral if you're Catholic like we were. So it's really very present. Now me, being alienated, unhappy 17-year-old, was gravitating towards cultural touchstones that you'd call them alternative. I was reading Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg and listening to Bob Dylan and reading The Village Voice and listening to WBAI. And this was all sort of my secret little life, off to the side, away from the mainstream of high school. So I was the hippest 17-year-old in my town, and I was the only person who knew that. So one Tuesday morning in March, I was walking to high school. It was about 3/4 of a mile away. And I just got this idea. I'm not going today. I'm going to go down to the train station, get on the train, and go into the city for the day. And I'm going to get away with that. I just know it. So I go down to the train station, and the train station is a big deal in this town because I would say half of the wage earners in this town get on those trains every morning and go into the city to their work. So there's a lot of trains. So I buy a ticket and get on the train. I'm walking down the aisle, and there, sitting there, is a friend of my parents. I think, busted already? What? Well, for whatever reason, he minded his own damn business. And that never came up. So I went into the city. I hopped it over to Greenwich Village and walked around and hung out in Washington Square Park and got a bagel on 7th Avenue and Sheridan Square and just really enjoying the ambiance and soaking it in. And before I went back home, I went to the 8th Street bookshop, which was kind of supposedly where the beat writers hung out. And I went in there, and it was a very cool place. And I felt like, I'm pretty cool. I'm here in this bookstore, you know. Can't you tell? I'm really cool. So I get on the train, go back to my hometown. In time for my after-school job, nobody knew. I thought, next morning, I went in with my forged note, handed it in at the office, went through my school day. That was great. The next Tuesday, I don't know why Tuesdays. Don't remember why. I did it again. And same deal, same routine, worked out great. And I think maybe the third Tuesday, I think I did it again one more time. And I think this was going great. You know, this was like my special way to break up my week and not have to go to high school every damn day. And then I think the following Tuesday, it poured rain, so I didn't want to go. And then maybe I skipped another Tuesday. And I went in again, and I did my usual route and, you know, kind of varied it a little bit, went down different streets, just looking at everything. I went into the 8th Street bookstore, and the clerk said, "Hey, how you doing? You know, I haven't seen you in a little while." I'm like, I've died and gone to heaven. The clerk in the 8th Street bookshop noticed me and acknowledged me. Whoa. Now, I always bought a paperback book because I wanted to feel like I wasn't just a browser, I was part of the scene, you know. And first book I bought was Lawrence Ferlinghetti's Coney Island of the Mind, a great mid-20th century book of poetry. So I went back home and went to my after-school job, went into next morning with my forged note and turned it in. And I don't know, maybe they started thinking, why is he always sick on Tuesdays? Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, halfway through first period, they made announcements on the speakers, and they still do that. I've subbed in schools, and I know this. It's like, please come to the office. Uh-oh. So I go to the office, and the assistant principal is standing there holding the note. And he said, so we called your mother, and you were not out sick yesterday. Where were you? And I said, I was just skipping school. I wasn't going to give them details. I wasn't going to give them the pleasure of knowing what I knew. Or so I thought. And And I just said, I've just been taking days off. And he said, well, we can't have that. So luckily they had the perfectly adequate punishment for someone who'd been skipping school. And I'll bet you know what it is.
Suspension.
No. No. 2 days of suspension.
Out of school.
Out of school. So that showed me, right? So anyway, did I regret it in the least? No. Not in the least. And that was just a way station on a lifetime of contrary and questioning attitudes that's led me right here to this room in Hardwick, Vermont with you on this lovely evening. Thank you very much.
We got, it's just one left. Who's the lucky person?
Dennis McSorley.
Dennis the Swirly's on deck. And here you go.
Okay. We'll swap.
Yeah.
So this book is All My Friends Are Going to Be Strangers. It's written by Larry McMurtry. He's most known for Lonesome Dove, but he's written about 30 books, and a lot of his books, characters move from one book to another. There were characters in this book that were from Moving On, and characters in this book went on to Terms of Endearment and turned up in later books. This book was published in the 70s, and I've dipped back into it like once a decade ever since then. The protagonist, Danny Deck, is not a totally likable person, and especially he has some attitudes about women that just won't fly nowadays. But he's kind of sad, and the story is kind of sad, but it's bittersweet, and you really kind of you feel for him, and I like that in a book, where the protagonist, you feel for that person. You say, "Oh, Danny, why are you messing this up over and over again?" You kind of identify. And there's only 2 copies of this in the entire library system, but there's a bunch of them working on thrift books, and I've always enjoyed going back to this. It's only 200 pages. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. I love that. How many of you skipped school? Raise your hand if you skipped school. Okay, almost all of you. Some of you didn't. I feel like your skipping school was so much more wholesome than what I was doing. I grew up on an Indian reservation. There was no trains anywhere. There was no cool, hip bookstores. I love that you were skipping school and then becoming cool by going to a bookstore. Because I actually hid like my nerdiness. I always thought it was like, and you said you thought it was cool. I always thought reading was kind of nerdy, and but I've come full circle. I actually think reading is really cool. And I'm proud to be a reader. I read hundreds of books. And I love hearing about all of these amazing books that people are reading. Larry McMurtry, I know his son, James McMurtry, who's an amazing singer-songwriter. He performs, he's performed in this area. He comes to the Berkshires a lot. But yeah, so thank you for that, Art. That was great. All right, we have one storyteller to go. You probably don't need any time, Dennis. All right, so let's all welcome Dennis McSorley to the stage.
Mark Twain said never let school interfere with your education. So I found out I have something in common with world-renowned, genius, highly acclaimed filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock and me, the kid from Queens, and that's a fear of the police. Hitchcock had it happen to him because when he was about 5 or 6, his his father sealed a note and told him to take it in the village where he lived in England to the police station. And the police officer read it, put Hitchcock in a cell for about 10 minutes, and said, "This is what we do with naughty boys." And for the rest of his life, he held that fear. For me, it was a little closer to home, see, because my father was a police officer sitting right in the living room. He was a New York City cop, and he kept that private. And he also told me, if you ever get in trouble, I'm not getting you out of it. This is Irish, this is being fair, this is being loving, and that's what he did. So this is a time when families had only one car. I don't know if all you remember this, there was one car. So the car that I'm going to describe was a 1959 Catalina Pontiac with the Pontiac hood ornament and a wheel like a schooner. It was about 27 feet long. It had a roof rack. It seated like 9 with a seat in the back that you could look at the other cars coming behind you. And I was with my dad when he bought this and he came home. And so to get that car, you'd have to ask, can I use the car? Which meant ask my father. I'm the oldest, only boy. The car also came with a little green and white card with a shield on. It was a PBA card, which is the union for the police officers, which they kept in the sun visor, because in those days, if they parked someplace, another cop coming along might see that and just keep walking. And my father worked different shifts, so I'd have to ask him if I could use the car. He worked a 4 to 12, and he'd sleep sometimes, and he'd say, sure. So, there was a little drinking. I'm in college, and I'm popular, and I want to be, and I also don't want to get caught. But I'm going to drive like 8 guys in this clown car to different events, like, with a couple of, and I'm the designated least drunk guy to get them all home. So some nights, the back wheel's on it. So I had to go in the house, and my dad would say, where's the car? And I'd have to walk the dog to find it some nights and make sure there's no blood on it or anything like that. So, and get the back wheel off and then say, it's up the street, Dad. And he must have known, but he just never asked these questions. He had a lot of common sense is what he called it. So there are 2 things that stick out for me, one around this. So I got the boys and we're going to New York City, Madison Square Garden, the old Garden, to see a college game. So my deal was to pick up this guy, that guy, Queens Boulevard, over here, the guys in my neighborhood, pile them in the car. We go to the college game in the Garden. It's over. We come outside. The car's not there. The car's not there. Now, this is no cell phones. There's no nothing. So I'm a dead guy. I'm dead. I don't even know what to do. I'm in Manhattan. I live in Ridgewood, Queens. There's no way. There's no train. All these other guys are looking at me like, what do you want from us? You drove us. Like, you figured this out. Kind of look, your buddies when you need them. And so I don't know. I'm just walking up and down. I'm distraught because my father told me I'm going to get the electric chair or something. If this happens, he's not coming to. And one of my buddies, Kevin, says, hey, Dennis, isn't that the car right there? And it's on the other side of the street in a legal parking space. What had happened is the police tow trucks had hooked it up because they saw the union card and put it in a legitimate spot and left it there. Hooray! All right, so now I'm like, this is going to go real fine now, and just see what happens after this. And so it's another night. It's the same car, and what we're doing is we're drinking on Myrtle Avenue in a bar before we're going to go drinking. So we're getting ready to go drinking because we're going to pick up girls down at Rockaway Beach. And we have to get ready for this event. And so to do that, we have, we're there for like an hour, and then when you're ready to go, it's about a 9-mile ride. So everybody piles out. We're in the clown car, and I'm driving. The card's in the window. It's always had to come off the visor. I go about from here to the cameraman, and a police horn goes and the lights come on. They didn't have all this blue stuff now. This is just a simple thing. And this is 2 New York City cops in a car. So they come out, the one guy comes out and he comes up to the car and he's kind of like smiling because back then it was like they were drinking too probably. Like there was no violations on any of these things. Like if you were less drunk, you drove the other guy home. They would sometimes take you home. So the cop says, is everything okay? And he sees the card. Everything okay in there? Yes, I'm being a good, yes, it is. And I'm not, and he says, you sure? Where you guys going? I said, we're going down to Rockaway. Okay. He didn't ask to drink and none of that stuff. He says, everything's okay. It's like the third time. Yeah, everything's okay. He goes, well, and as he says that, well, an arm comes off the and blocks my view from the cop. I don't know if he touched it or not. And he says, you might want to get your buddy off the roof. So they pull away. They shut the lights off. They take off. And Tommy Walsh, who's the water polo goalie, weighs about 260 pounds, had come out of the bar, funny, climbed up there and blacked out on top of the car and passed out. And I'm driving with this dead bear on top of the car. So we realized that. So we Three Stooge Tommy and wake him up and tell him what a fool he's been. He's crying, and we get in the car, and that was the second time that the car had saved me. Now, if that was today with Romney with the dog and people leave coffee cups and babies on the roof and stuff and cell phones, this would have been viral. People would have been watching this in Australia. And I wouldn't have had a car anymore, and I would have died that night, I'm sure, if my father was alive and all that. So it's nice to live in your own time and have this happen. But I'll tell you this, and I mean it. I've been sober a long time, it has nothing to do with it, and I'm in my 70s, and there isn't a time when I don't go by a police car somewhere, anywhere, state guys hiding out, any town, any place where I don't get that little knot in my stomach saying, if Dad finds out. Thank you. Just listen to this. This is Benji and his friend Colin. They're kids. He didn't have any animals that were alive, but he did have some dead ones, including a fox and some birds. And I asked him why he had them, and he said it was to remind him of man's cruelty. Because men are crueler than women? I said, well, I mean men, as in all humans, but yes, I mean that too, he said. I asked him if he had a wife, and he said, not anymore. That he used to actually have two, but not at the same time. I asked him if that was because he didn't like the wives anymore, and he said that no, he still liked them a lot. I asked him why both of them didn't still live with him now and then, and he said it was complicated, and that also sometimes it's nice to live alone, and that you couldn't live with everyone you like because that would be impossible. So that's the kind of sentences that this guy writes. I just pull books off the shelf. I've been in library since I had to do book reports in the 3rd grade. I keep a library card. I don't buy them because then I have to read them and bring them back. I like that pressure. And I usually read the back of a book off the shelf because I don't know anything about it. And when I see what people think about it, I used to look at the Times and some of the critic stuff, or I ask somebody else, and that's how I pick it. So I know nothing about this guy, but if you're a storyteller or a conversationalist, this guy, the voice of him in here is this 8-year-old kid, and then he's 40, and he jumps back around, is as if he's talking to you. I would know if it's a great novel or not, but as somebody who likes to tell stories, and I read this, it just lit me up. I had never anything like this. It's unbelievable. It's like he's there with you talking. So, his use of time and all this stuff doesn't really matter. I just found it exciting, and I had to renew it 3 times. I'm going slow because if I like a book, I don't like finishing them. Thank you.
Oh, the Burlington Library. Nice. Yeah, Tom Cox. Yeah, it's up here as well. So I love when Dennis tells stories because, he tells these stories about New York City that I just, they're like historical nonfiction, right? You get to put yourself in a place and you get to experience it. And also it triggers me to think about pre-game drinking. Like we actually would drink before we were going to go. Remember that? You would all get together into a room and you would drink before you went drinking. What were we doing? Like, once again, no prefrontal cortex. Like, it was like, that seemed like a good idea, right? And drinking and driving, and we didn't, no seatbelts. Did you have any seatbelts that even worked? Yeah, there was no seatbelts. Yeah. So yeah. So I just want to give a big round of applause to all of these brave, vulnerable storytellers. Wouldn't be in existence if it wasn't for these storytellers. And some of these storytellers drive a long distance. Lexi might have come the farthest. How far did you drive, Lexi?
From Bristol.
Bristol. So you're about 20 minutes from me. So you went about 20 minutes further than me. But yeah, there are people that drive hours to come to these events. And I also really want to give a warm welcome to this amazing library. We get to participate in this new extension here. So let's all thank Diane for bringing us in. Also, we've got Lance to thank for recording this for Hardwick Community Television. And also, I do not want to forget Daphne and her amazing timing, keeping you guys all. So I do hope that you join for some of the 170 odd library storytelling events that will be in the future. There will be more in this area. If you have a library and you want them to participate, please put your name on the mailing list and reach out to me. Have your library reach out to me. I would love to come back to this area. So you guys have been amazing. Thank you. Have a wonderful night. Have a story-worthy life.